When North Carolina kids commit serious crimes, they're often sentenced to the Stonewall Jackson Youth Development Center. The center is more than a century old, and the stories from the early years are not pleasant. Tonight, reporter Zach Dahlheimer is getting answers about the checkered past and what's changed behind the brick walls.
On about 100 acres in Concord, North Carolina, you'll find the Stonewall Jackson Youth Development Center. It opened in 1909 as our state's first juvenile training facility. The Deputy Secretary for Juvenile Justice says troubled kids were sent here instead of state prison.
Up until that point, juveniles were housed with adults in the state of North Carolina, and if a juvenile as young as 6 or 5 years old could be put in an adult prison or adult facility.
This is the administration building?
Yes.
Today, most of the buildings from the original campus are abandoned, but memories of what went on behind the brick walls live on. When someone mentions Stonewall Jackson to you, what goes through your mind?
I think of brutality. All of the worst things that society can bring upon a child.
Russell Dan Smith was sent to Stonewall Jackson in 1963 at 13 years old after breaking into a home and stealing things. More than half a century later, his time at Stonewall Jackson still haunts him.
While I was there, I was raped, and then I was punished for being raped. We were all punished for that. We were written up, and my parents were notified, not that I was raped, but that I had had sex with boys in the bedroom, and my parents not got over that. While I was there, I was beaten for smoking my first cigarette. I received 76 lashes for my first cigarette.
We have a very different system than we had in the 1960s.
Lassiter says our youth facilities now stress therapy over punishment.
What we learned was that just getting on them and getting in their face and being punitive towards them really wasn't changing their behavior. We also used to lock kids in their room for a long time and put them in isolation. We don't do that anymore. We find that kids that are locked in their rooms, they're not growing, they're not getting the therapy, they're not trying to use the skills that we're trying to teach them.
Around most of the older buildings like this one here, you'd find lots of fencing and razor wires surrounding them. That's because DPS officials tell us buildings like this are condemned and considered unsafe to be inside. They also tell us that buildings like this can't be torn down because they're considered historic. Now, if you look down the street here, you can see what's called a Cabarrus complex, built in 2008, where kids at Stonewall Jackson are at today.
It's a smaller setting now. The kids are only on an 8-bed unit versus what they used to have, large dormitory-style facilities. That 8-bed unit kind of serves like a family. Their meals together, they go through therapy together, they do group counseling together, and there's classes for those kids to attend while they're there.
They learn life, education, and vocation skills. Many earn a high school diploma. Some even get full college scholarships.
We changed the structure of those facilities and what we do in those facilities, and we're getting better outcomes because of it.
There are psychologists on staff, and everyone is trained on abuse and neglect policies.
We take it very seriously. No young person should be going to these facilities and getting abused or harm in any way.
Lassiter says the state is learning from mistakes of the past to get better results for children today. Zach Dahlheimer, CBS 17 News.